the internet! It is Saturday the 11th of May 2024 and welcome back to the channel. I recently had a doctor's appointment, full health checkup, as you do as you're getting older. I'm getting older, you are too, don't you think you're not? You all are. And in my health checkup, the doctor sort of said, over the long term, your cholesterol has crept up just ever so slightly. He didn't suggest it was anything to really worry about, but he did use these terms. He said it would behoove you, and I used the inverted quotes because he was talking, it would behoove you to lower your cholesterol if you can. So, what the hell's cholesterol? I don't know. I've heard about it. Don't know much about it. I'm here to learn. If you're here to learn, is cholesterol good or bad for you? Let me just be very, very clear about this. I don't have those answers. That's why I'm doing this stream. I want to investigate myself, learn from the internet, discover what we can, and potentially discuss it here on the stream. I was having a coffee. Is that bad for me with a cookie? Shortbread, are they bad for you? Do these have cholesterol? I don't know. There's two schools of thought here. In the long term, or in the old days, cholesterol bad, cholesterol bad. In the new days, current days, some people are saying cholesterol's good for you. It's always been something that's been frowned upon when I was growing up. I'm 48 now. When I was younger, cholesterol, 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 you know, all the badness, all the badness. Stop eating foods that contain cholesterol. Your body creates your own cholesterol. There's a different view of thought out there currently. So what I want to do is learn about it. I only see John in the chat. Hello, the internet. John, I got to tell you this, man. I'm just going to come out and say it. Are you ever here, or do you just have like a bot that puts those exact comments in the chat? Because I see that at the beginning of every one of my streams. John C, hello, the internet. Then John C, smash the like button. Yeah, thanks, which is a copy of what I do. So then I say hello to John, and then I say cheers, and then I say smash the like button, and then John says nothing. So I think John's not actually real. So therefore, let's not talk to John. Let's move on. Cholesterol, what the hell is it? Cholesterol is a waxy substance found in your blood. Your body needs cholesterol to build healthy cells, but high levels of cholesterol can increase your risk of heart disease. With high cholesterol, you can develop fatty deposits in your blood vessels. And then I read further, is it good or bad? The reading tells me, it tells me what I already knew. It's a type of fat within our bodies. It helps us do a lot of things, building cells, digesting food, and making hormones. While cholesterol is needed for our body to function properly, too much of it can be bad. High cholesterol can cause serious problems in our blood, such as clots, heart and brain issues. So that doesn't sound good. Hey, John is here. John, this stream is very helpful for me because when I get older, I'll never know what might happen. So therefore you are real, John. You had me confused. Good to see you, man. Thank you. And thanks for the nice words. It's just you and I here, so we can just chat amongst ourselves. I was also going to say, for those watching that are not on YouTube, come on over to YouTube if you want to partake in this discussion. If you got any contributions, this is happening on YouTube. That's the chat that I'm looking at, the only one I'm looking at. If you're on Twitter or Twitch or even on Bolt Plus, if you're over there and you're chatting in the chat, blah, 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 I'm not seeing it. I'm only seeing this very small chat with me and John. John says, so far I was the only one that left a like. There are 3 people watching. Okay, well, if you do like the content, please smack the like button. So that's what cholesterol is. Here is a report from NIH Medline Plus magazine. The good, the bad, and the unhealthy of cholesterol. Now, what I'm understanding is this is a physical diagram of what it might look like, and it's closing up that artery. So that's when cholesterol gets out of control. It closes your arteries. Or is that a vein? I don't know. One or the other. The ones that take the blood. Give the blood, take the blood. Arteries go one way, veins go the other, right? I can't remember which is which. Doesn't matter. Well, it does matter, but we'll learn about it. It says here, we hear about cholesterol in the news, in diets, and on ads, but what exactly is it? Well, we already know it's a type of fat within our bodies. Helps us do a lot of things, building cells, digesting foods, and making hormones. It is needed for our body to function properly, but too much of it can be bad, and there are problems associated with that. Blood clots, heart and brain issues. We just read that. Mediline Plus has released new health topic pages on cholesterol, such as how to lower your cholesterol with diet to help you better understand and control your cholesterol. Now it says here, this Q&A features tips from the National Heart, Lung and Blood Institute. What is good cholesterol? There are two main types of cholesterol, good and bad. That's very easy to understand. There's two sides to the equation, good and bad. Up, down, bad, evil, good, bad, good, bad. Good cholesterol is known as, can you see that? Good cholesterol is known as HDL. Okay, doesn't tell us what that stands for. Let's give it a name. Help deliver life. That's what good cholesterol does. It helps deliver life. It is good because it takes cholesterol from the tissues and blood to the liver, and the liver removes it from your body. Okay. So your body creates cholesterol, but the HDL cholesterol removes itself? Okay. A low level of HDL cholesterol increases your risk for heart disease. What? Run that by me again. A low level of HDL cholesterol, the good one, increases your risk for heart disease. Am I reading that correctly? So, the two types of cholesterol, good and bad. Now we're learning about good first. Good is known as HDL. This is the good one. But if you only have a small amount of it, your heart risk disease increases. Your risk for heart disease. What? That doesn't make sense. Why is it good then? So it's good, but you only want a small amount of it? It's good. Hang on. It's good, so you want more of it. A high level. So if a low level of HDL cholesterol increases your risk of heart disease, a high level of HDL cholesterol decreases. So that's why it's called good. You want more of it? Okay. Well, give me the good. What is bad cholesterol? LDL. Let's decrease life, LDL. Let's decrease life, which also is called bad cholesterol, carries cholesterol to tissues, including the arteries. Most of the cholesterol in our blood is the LDL form, which is bad. So you don't want blood cholesterol. Shut up. You want to keep your LDL levels low. You also want to keep your HDL levels low, apparently. Oh, sorry, my bad. That's going to increase your... That's just worded like they should... I'm no scientist, but I thought that was worded pretty poorly. Okay, so you want to keep your LDL levels low. If not, bad cholesterol can create a buildup in your arteries known as plaque. Is that the same as the stuff on your teeth? Plaques, that's the plural. Plaques make it harder for blood to flow to your heart, creating heart problems. These include chest pain and heart attacks. Gotcha. Okay. Plaques can also lead to blood clots in the brain and legs. Oh, shit. Okay, so that's bad. LDL bad. HDL good. Help deliver life good. Let's decrease life bad. Okay, what causes high cholesterol? So it's all in our food, right? An unhealthy lifestyle? Oh, okay. Unhealthy lifestyle can contribute to high cholesterol. Your genes, family history, and some medicines you take may also contribute. Diseases that affect your thyroid gland and kidney function also increase the cholesterol level. Okay. What is a healthy cholesterol level for me? Now, this is interesting because I don't actually have the levels that my doctor gave me. I didn't ask for them, but I just trusted him. I should have got the actual figures, right? Because then we could have compared here. What about your medical records online? Can I go somewhere and just go, I want to know what my record is? That'd be on my Medicare page, wouldn't it? I mean, I'm not going to do it now, but if I want to go in and look what those levels are, do I have to call him up, or can I just go in? Can I just go somewhere online into my Medicare and then just find the doctor's information? I don't know. Either way, in general, if you are 19 years or younger, fuck, why do they word it like that? Just say if you're less than 19. If you're younger than 19, your total cholesterol levels should be less than 170 milligrams per deciliter. What the crikey is a deciliter of blood? How many deciliters? How many deciliters of blood in the human body? And by the way, then we'll work out what the freak a deciliter is. How much blood is in the human body? The average adult weighing 150 to 180 pounds, what the hell does that mean? Should have I'm in Australia, I don't know what a pound is. Should have about that much to that much gallon. Oh, okay, human body. Trending searches. Okay, metric. I don't want this. Okay, here we go. Healthline. The average, the amount of blood in your body is generally equivalent to 7% of your body weight. Babies, children, adults. Gallons again. Why? I put the word metric in it. I put the word metric in it, in metric. It doesn't matter. I just wanted to know what a deciliter is. Okay, forget that. How many? What is a deciliter? What is a deciliter? Aside from a Japanese imported van. That's a delika, my bad. A deciliter, a metric unit of capacity equal to 1/10 of a liter. Okay, that makes more sense to me. 1/10 of a liter. So 170 milligrams per 1/10 of a liter of blood. I'm going to assume you don't have... Hey Siri, how much blood in a human body in liters?
Here's an answer from wikipedia.org. A typical adult has a blood volume of approximately 5 liters, with females and males having approximately the same blood percentage by weight.
Hey Siri, shut up. Hey Siri, calm it. So 5 liters of blood, 170 milligrams per deciliter.
Some web results. I can show them if you ask again from your iPhone.
I actually didn't ask you anything more. You're like that annoying kid at the back of the class that just keeps chirping up. Okay, so how can I lower my bad cholesterol? Okay, so by eating healthily, being physically active, quitting smoking. Does that mean I've got to start smoking and then quit it? Of course it does not. And managing stress can help lower your cholesterol. So at this point, I eat relatively healthily. I don't have a bad diet. Actually, some might argue I have a good diet. I don't eat any junk food at all. Oh, sorry, I don't eat any fast food. I don't eat fast foods. Although, forgot my lunch the other day and bought a bagel from Krispy Kreme. That was the only thing on the menu that wasn't like ridiculously sweet, because it's a donut store, right? So I already eat quite healthily, and I'm very physically active, surfing mainly and walking as well. I will start smoking and then give it up to call myself quit smoking. Of course, I'm not going to do that. This is a joke. I'm just being silly. Managing stress. I don't really manage my stress that well. I've got to be honest. I'll let it ride. I'm not very good with managing stress. On the outward, it might look like I am, but I often just internalize it. So those are the scopes. Now, I also asked, why is cholesterol good or bad? I'm going to sneeze here and might just have to do that off camera here, or just turn my... turn my head. So what did I ask? Why is cholesterol good or bad? By the way, you can't see it here, and I can't really show you my chest on stream, can I? I got my skin cancer cut out, and yeah. Oh, I can show you the photo, I suppose. Got 9 stitches. which was a lot more than I thought there'd be like 2 or 3. 9 stitches, and internal stitches as well. So he put stitches underneath it and then the top stitches. Can you see that? Those stitches. Also, I believe that's not vertical. I believe it's horizontal. I believe it's like that. So that's pretty gnarly for a little skin cancer. That's a separate story. But why did I tell you that? Oh, when I sneezed, I was conscious that I don't want to open up. This only happened on Friday. It's Saturday. This happened on Thursday. It's Saturday now. I'm conscious about tearing the stitches. I'm saying stitches like it's spelt. You think that's silly? Then why is there the extra T in stitches? Shouldn't have that. It should be spelled STICHES, but it's not. It's spelled STITCHES. Stitches. So I was conscious about sneezing, just like I've been conscious about sleeping on one side. I'm trying to sleep on my back. Turn to one side. Is that stretching the stitches? I don't know. That's why I told you that. So yeah, I asked it, why is cholesterol good or bad for your body? And obviously, the higher the cholesterol, fatty deposits can develop within your blood vessels. Eventually, these deposits grow, making it difficult for enough blood to flow through your arteries. That's bad, right? That's definitely bad. So then, what are the foods that are... What was that noise? Don't worry about it. There's a lot of storm action right now. This part of Australia, the east coast, south coast, is getting hammered by rain. It's probably just the house settling in all the rain. Yeah, I asked what foods are the worst for high cholesterol. Red meat, such as beef, pork, and lamb. Red meat? Pork's not red meat. Red meat, such as beef, pork, and lamb, as well as processed meats, such as sausages. So they're the worst. Okay, that's the top of the list of no-no-nos. That's a bit of a shame. Full-fat dairy, such as cream, whole milk, and butter. Now, I do consume whole milk. I don't really touch cream too often. And I don't do butter, I do margarine. But I definitely do whole milk. Baked goods and sweets. Now, I don't do baked goods so often, but I am partial to something sweet after dinner, such as chocolate or snakes or anything along those lines. Fried foods. Fried foods. So anything deep fried. Well, I don't do that too often. That's like a specialty. Tropical oils such as palm oil and coconut oil. Okay. Don't really do either of those. Butter. Butter gets a second mention. It's already mentioned up the top here. Is that a different butter? That's both butters, right? That's all the butters. By the way, that's all of them, isn't it? That only leaves 2. I mean, I'm no genius, but I can only think of 2 food items that doesn't include. That's not including, or that's not mentioning vegetables or nuts. Nutses. Does that mean that's all you can eat? Did I ask that? How to lower your cholesterol. So you can lower your cholesterol by lowering an intake of foods containing fiber. It's the first time fiber's been mentioned. It says here, foods that are high in dietary fiber, in particular soluble fiber, can reduce the amount of the bad LDLs, the let's delay life. Is that what we called it? Let's deliver life. Wasn't that the good one? Wasn't that the good one? Where's the good and bad? No, that's the bad one. Right, I'm confused about it. They should just call them one. Okay. Anyway, that's in fiber. So fiber containing foods in your diet. So reduce the fiber. Is that right? Low intake of foods containing fiber. Foods that are high in dietary fiber, particularly soluble fiber, can reduce the amount of LDL. Include fiber containing foods in your diet by choosing vegetables, fruits, whole grains, legumes. That's a great word, isn't it? Legumes, nuts, and seeds every day. Now, wait a second. So I asked how to lower cholesterol, and it said low intake of foods containing fiber. So that's what you've got to do, or that's how does that, is that reading correctly to me? Don't question Google. Just go with it, man. Foods that are high in dietary fiber, particularly soluble fiber, can reduce the amount of bad. So don't lower it, increase it. So that should say increase intake of foods containing fiber. So you can include fiber-containing foods such as veggies, fruits, whole grains. So out of these lists, I will acknowledge I don't eat enough vegetables. That's probably quite factual. I do eat a decent amount of fruit, not a lot, but I do eat a little fruit here and there. Whole grains, not so much. In bread, I guess. Legumes, seldom. Nuts I eat somewhat regularly, and seeds, I definitely don't do this stuff every day. That could be something. If I wanted to lower my cholesterol, that could be some steps that I could take by eating those foods more and eating less of the other foods. Bearing in mind, my doctor said it's not that bad, your cholesterol levels, but he said, looking at your records over time, he's seeing an increase, an ever so, he didn't say slight, he just said it's increasing. And he said, given your age, 48, you probably should think about lowering your cholesterol. Of course, that's straight off the Google machine, but there are doctors out there that believe that's all rubbish and you should be trying to increase your cholesterol level. I know, right? I know it sounds like everything we've just read says you should go the other way, but there are doctors that say, all wrong, change it, this is what's right. Now, in the interest of learning as much as we can here on this stream, I want to hear what they've got to say. I found 3 videos on the machine. I want to fire them up and have a look. And as we watch these, let's also remember that, I don't know how old you are, but when I was younger, they had this food pyramid. And the foods that you were supposed to eat, all those foods that were like the big part of your diet, they've all changed that around. And the consensus now is, the pyramid, we got that all wrong. And so what I'm saying is things change. And what they say, and when I say they, I'm just talking about the general consensus, what they say you should do definitely changes over time. Along with the food triangle or the food pyramid, I remember in woodwork class, which I took for one year or one semester or whatever, there was a sign that said, do you realize that real eyes are irreplaceable? Make sure you wear your goggles when doing anything with machinery. I remember that. Side note, I didn't do woodwork for very long. There were no girls in that class. I went and did cooking or home science instead because it was a class full of girls. I remember like the next year they were like, you can choose which one you want to do. And I'm like, that one's full of women and they're all guys. I'm going and doing the cooking one. We did not only cooking, but there was also making clothes, stitching and fiber, sewing and stuff. So in the interest of keeping our knowledge wide and open, there are 3 videos here. The first one is from Dr. Brad Stanfield. Cholesterol myths. What really causes heart attacks? Let's learn from Dr. Brad Stanfield. John, you mean the food pyramid? Like protein, dairy, oils, food, that's the one, man.
There is no such thing as bad or good cholesterol. Today we're debunking myths and going through what you need to do to protect your heart.
This guy's obviously Kiwi, right? He said myths. We're debunking myths. But by the way, did you just hear what he said? He just said the opposite of what we just read from multiple other sources. He just came out and said there are no such thing as good or bad cholesterol. So just be aware that if there are things on the internet and there are things, and everybody has the different take on it. Let's just take it all in.
Cholesterol is a waxy, fat-like substance that's found in all cells in the body. Your body needs this cholesterol to make hormones, vitamin D, and help to digest your foods. But there's a problem. Cholesterol doesn't mix with blood. Think of trying to mix oil and water. It doesn't work and they separate out. Instead, the cholesterol is packaged up into vehicles called lipoproteins. So LDL, or low-density lipoprotein, simply refers to the density of the cholesterol that's packaged into that lipoprotein. The cholesterol structure itself is exactly the same, whether it's transported in a high-density lipoprotein or a low-density lipoprotein. The cholesterol...
Okay, hold on. Processing all this, we learnt about those terms, HDL and LDL. Now we know that it's it's like he called it a vehicle. So not only does cholesterol move around in your blood, but it needs to be contained within something. So he's telling us about the container, the LDL.
Itself doesn't cause heart disease.
Whoa. The what?
Or a low-density lipoprotein. The cholesterol itself doesn't cause heart disease.
So the thing inside the vehicle doesn't cause the problem. Is he going to say now that the vehicle is the problem? Is that what he's going to say? By the way, what do you think is on his eye? Is that something to worry about? I'm sure he's got that checked out.
Or a low-density lipoprotein. The cholesterol itself doesn't cause heart disease. Instead, it's the concentration of the cholesterol-carrying lipoproteins in the blood that really matter.
Hold on. He said the cholesterol doesn't cause the heart disease. It's the concentration of the lipos in the blood. Okay. That's a bit pedantic, though, because there are no lipoids unless there's cholesterol, right? Let's go back and make sure we got all that, because it seems... Hang on, let's just hear it again.
Of the cholesterol.
Hold on, go back a bit further.
Instead, the cholesterol
Hold on. I don't want to mess this up.
Digest your foods. But there's a problem. Cholesterol doesn't mix with blood. Think of trying to mix oil and water. It doesn't work and they separate out. Instead, the cholesterol is packaged up into vehicles called lipoproteins.
Got it.
So LDL, or low density lipoprotein, simply refers to the density of the cholesterol that's packaged into that lipoprotein.
Okay.
The cholesterol structure itself is exactly the same, whether it's transported in a high density lipoprotein or a low density lipoprotein. The cholesterol itself doesn't cause heart disease. Instead, it's the concentration.
Can you believe the phone rang right then? I didn't even hear what he said for the second time because the phone call. Hold on. Sorry.
Cholesterol that's packaged into that lipoprotein. The cholesterol structure itself is exactly the same, whether it's transported in a high density lipoprotein or a low density lipoprotein. The cholesterol itself doesn't cause heart disease.
Okay.
Instead, it's the concentration of the cholesterol-carrying lipoproteins in the blood that really matter.
Okay, so he's just saying that the vehicle, the amount of cholesterol inside the vehicle, so whether it's the HDL or the LDL, that's what he's saying. Got that.
And here comes the yelling from the keto and carnivore influencers, who will say things like cholesterol-carrying lipoproteins don't matter. What matters is insulin resistance and your overall metabolic health. They'll bring up graphs like this one, showing that low-density lipoprotein levels are associated with higher death rates, and the ideal LDL cholesterol level is 140 milligrams per deciliter. Now, the stakes are high. We absolutely need to get this right, so that we can prevent heart attacks and strokes. This is not to be trifled with. So let's
Trifled with? That's one of the fatty foods, the sweets, right? You're supposed to lower... You can't use the word trifle. You can, I guess.
So that we can prevent heart attacks and strokes. This is not to be trifled with. So let's unpack this myth step by step. Firstly,
hang on, what myth is he mentioned the carnivore diet there, which is, it's like there's a war. So who said what? What did he say about the carnivores?
Instead, it's the concentration of the cholesterol-carrying lipoproteins in the blood that really matter. And here comes the yelling from the keto and carnivore influencers, who will say things like cholesterol-carrying lipoproteins don't matter.
Okay, so the keto diets, those guys are saying that it doesn't matter what your LD and your HDL is. It is your, he said insulin?
And carnivore influencers, who will say things like cholesterol-carrying lipoproteins don't matter. What matters is insulin resistance and your overall metabolic health. They'll bring up graphs like this one, showing that low-density lipoprotein levels are associated with higher death rates, and the ideal LDL cholesterol level is 140 milligrams per deciliter.
Okay, well, okay. So this chart on the left, all causes of mortality. Where's my mouse? Here. So the chart is saying that as you lower your LDL to the required or the suggested 140 milligrams per deciliter, you fall into this higher charting area of death. So you can't. I mean, how can you argue that if that's what the chart is saying? And I'm assuming this is all backed by statistical research, but how can you argue that? I mean, it's interesting. The chart goes back up on this side. I don't know. Okay, let's hear how he explains this to an absolute dummy like me.
Now, the stakes are high. We absolutely need to get this right so that we can prevent heart attacks and strokes. This is not to be trifled with. So let's unpack this myth step by step. Firstly, this is an observational study, so all the authors did was simply observe the population to see what trends they could see.
Okay, so all they did was observe. Isn't that research though? What's the problem with observing and then documenting? Correlation does not equal causation. Okay. This might be going a bit too deep for me, like over my head, but I thought that's how you did this stuff. You had people, you observed them. It's a research study, right?
So all the authors did was simply observe the population to see what trends they could see. But correlation doesn't equal causation. Instead, what's happening is that these low levels of LDL cholesterol are largely a marker of severe disease. Essentially, when a population is observed, those who have got chronic diseases, such as cancer or chronic kidney disease, they often have low levels of LDL cholesterol. Instead, we know that when we actively intervene and lower a person's LDL cholesterol levels, we lower the rates of heart disease. And we know this from randomized controlled trials.
The achieved absolute LDL-C level was significantly associated with the absolute. So he's saying from another study, which we should believe, we shouldn't believe the ones that the other guys did, but we can believe this one. Oh man, I'm lying. I can't answer this. Sorry. Okay. Interesting.
Cue more yelling from the keto and carnivore influencers, who will say that those results are explained by reduced inflammation levels, that when we actively lower a person's LDL cholesterol levels, we're also lowering their inflammation, and it's the lower inflammation levels that are responsible for the lower cardiovascular disease. It's got nothing to do with the LDL cholesterol levels. So let's address that point. We have a massive trial called the PESA study, PESA, and it enrolled over 4,000 individuals who underwent 3 yearly examinations looking for blockages in their blood vessels. What they found is that for people that had optimal values for their cardiovascular risk factors, so they were insulin sensitive, they were at the perfect weight, they had low levels of inflammation, there was still a significant correlation between LDL cholesterol levels and the presence of blockages in blood vessels. And we can see this quite clearly on the graph, where as the LDL cholesterol levels increase, so too does the chance of developing blockages in our blood vessels. Again, what this trial tells us is even if you don't have insulin resistance, if you have low levels of inflammation and you are a perfect weight, you can still develop blockages in your blood vessels if the concentration of the cholesterol-carrying lipoproteins is high enough.
Okay, a lot to take in there. So the study that he did or that they did was more believable somehow, and it found out that the more LDLs you have, the higher the chance of blockages. Okay, so LDL bad.
And when you lower that concentration, as evidenced by the randomized controlled trials, you lower your chance of blockages in your blood vessels. You lower the chance of heart attacks and strokes. Now, one criticism of the PESA study is that in the very low LDL cholesterol group, there was only 2 participants. This is because without using medications, it's almost impossible to reach these low levels of LDL cholesterol. You have to have won the genetic lottery, so it's very rare to have LDL cholesterol levels this low. However, as the numbers of participants increase, again you can quite clearly see the trend, where as LDL cholesterol levels increase, so too do the chances of developing blockages in our blood vessels. And
okay, so isn't I mean, am I getting this wrong? Isn't this what we just read though? I thought this guy was going to tell us the opposite. This is LDLs. Where was the LDL here? LDL, which is also called bad cholesterol, carries cholesterol to tissues, including arteries. You want to keep your LDL levels low. Okay. So this guy's in agreement with this. So this is not a myth, or is this a myth that we haven't encountered yet? Okay.
Taken together, this supports the idea that the lower your LDL cholesterol levels are, the better, as in the more protected you are against heart attacks and strokes.
Right. So lower LDL. Oh, you know what he's going to say now? Is this where he's going to say, so the cholesterol isn't the problem, but the thing that the cholesterol runs around in is the problem, and you get that by exposure to too much vitamin B or something? That's what he's going to say, right? He's going to say we lower the LDL in our blood, and therefore we lower the risk of heart disease. It's not the cholesterol in the LDL, it's the LDL itself. No LDL, no cholesterol. I bet that's where he goes.
So how does a high concentration of low-density lipoprotein particles cause blockages in our blood vessels? Like I mentioned earlier, correlation doesn't equal causation. We need to have a firm mechanism for how LDL particles can cause blockages in our blood vessels, and this was explained beautifully.
Fuck, look at that chart. I mean, I hope he runs us through there's a lot of things going on there. Can't I just take a pill to get rid of the LDLs?
By the European Atherosclerosis Society. They explain that LDL particles, they don't just passively move across blood vessel walls. Instead, there are specific pathways to cross the blood vessel walls, and this is called transcytosis. The take-home message before we move on to the next point is that if the LDL particles reach a certain concentration, even if you are metabolically healthy, you are insulin sensitive, and you've got a perfect weight, you can still develop blockages in your blood vessels.
Okay, okay, that's clear. He's made it clear. He made it clear to this dum-dum anyway. I understand what he's saying. How do we stop it?
It's not the cholesterol itself, it's the concentration of
it's not the cholesterol itself, but the cholesterol is in the LDL. So it's a bit of a who cares, right? If you've got cholesterol, you've got you don't wait. You also have HDLs as well as LDLs, the good ones and the bad ones. So is he specifically saying forget the cholesterol, just concentrate on the LDLs?
The cholesterol carrying lipoproteins that really matters. But lipoprotein concentration isn't the only factor that we need to worry about. We still have to address all of the other risk factors, including insulin resistance, blood sugar levels, inflammation, blood pressure, weight. All of those risk factors, including lipoprotein concentrations, need to be addressed to reduce our chance of heart attacks. So coming back to lipoproteins, which lipoproteins do we need to worry about? Because on a regular lipid blood panel, you'll see LDL cholesterol. That's a measure of the amount of cholesterol that the LDL particles are carrying. It doesn't actually measure the number or concentration of the LDL particles. And it's not just LDL particles that contribute to blockages in our blood vessels. There are different types of LDL particles, such as small dense LDL, oxidized LDL, and there's lipoprotein.
Now it's getting a bit too deep, right? Like, do these all carry different things, or do they all carry cholesterol?
Little a, just to name a few. So just relying on LDL cholesterol is an incomplete marker. Ideally, if my patients have the resources to fund it, I encourage them to check their ApoB levels. ApoB is a primary protein component of lipoproteins that cause issues with respect to our blood vessels. It's the ApoB family of lipoproteins that can be retained in our blood vessel walls, again leading to blockages. You'll hear some people talking about oxidized LDL or small dense LDL, that those are the ones to worry about. That has been debunked. It's the concentration of the ApoB containing lipoproteins that really matters. And for I'm trying to dissect all this, and yes, I just did get distracted again. It's a bit too deep, right? I'm hearing a lot about I'm hearing a lot of arguing that cholesterol is not the issue, the LDL is. So let's not worry about all the different LDLs. Let's work on how do we stop the LDL? Like how do we reduce them? If he doesn't answer that, this will be a little bit of a waste. It seems like there's a fight here. Like there's the keto guys, and then there's whoever this guy represents. There's a bit of a back and forth or something that I don't know about. My patients that I see at the clinic, we aim for ApoB levels below 60 milligrams per deciliter. But as mentioned earlier, there are costs involved in measuring your ApoB levels, so if we have to rely on LDL cholesterol levels alone...
I was going to say, how do you measure your cholesterol level? Aside from a blood sample. Hey Siri, can the Apple Watch measure your cholesterol levels?
I found some web results. I can show them if you ask again from your own.
God, you're so dumb. Can't you just tell me? Can the Apple Watch tell me how could it? Track important health information with the Apple Watch Ultra. Let's see. Search for cholesterol. 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 No cholesterol. Can the Apple Watch deciliter? I just wanted to see. Does it? It doesn't. Can the Apple Watch detect high cholesterol? It's 2023 and still no ability to track cholesterol levels. Is there an app to check cholesterol levels? Your cholesterol is convenient, easy to use app that allows you to record, store, and monitor your cholesterol. That's not what they're asking. So it's got to be a blood test, right? It's got to be a blood test. And you can't measure your blood unless you take a sample, right? Using the blood oxygen app on the Apple Watch Series 6 or later to measure the percentage of oxygen in your red blood. So I can do that. Okay. Can an iPhone measure cholesterol? No, it cannot. A new iPhone accessory and app can test cholesterol levels in a minute? The fuck it can? Uses the iPhone camera to detect biomarkers in the blood. That was from 2013. Get out of here. It's 2024. I didn't know about that. What's the best cholesterol? What's the easiest way to check cholesterol levels? Your healthcare team can do a blood test, a lipid profile. What can an Apple Watch measure? You can even see the estimates. Doesn't, so you can't track you can track your cholesterol, but you cannot measure it on the Apple Watch. Just want to verify that. Heart, blood. Doesn't mention blood. Where's blood? Well, there's menstrual cycle. Blood oxygen. Apple Watch Ultra also tracks metrics such as blood oxygen, heart rate, time of sleep, respiratory rate, and wrist temperature. I mean, I want to get one eventually, but I'd rather wait and see if if I can measure my cholesterol. If they come out with a new update and it says, by the way, it can measure your cholesterol, I'll buy one. I'll buy one.
We still target a level below 60 milligrams per deciliter. Now you'll notice that that level is significantly less compared to the American Heart Association guidelines. And I'll reference the PISA study again because we can see that if the LDL cholesterol levels are above 60, that's when it seems that atherosclerosis or blockages in our blood vessels can occur. The next question is, why don't we pay that much attention to the HDL cholesterol levels that are also commonly measured on a standard lipid blood test?
Right on.
It used to be thought that by raising the concentration of HDL particles, we could be protected against heart disease. Unfortunately, those studies failed, and that's why clinicians instead focus on ApoB levels. So how do we lower ApoB-containing lipoproteins? Well, we always start with diet, and we don't just want to focus on a diet that lowers ApoB levels. Ideally, we want a diet that also helps to lower blood pressure and lower our weight.
Smashed Avo? Sounds like a good diet to me.
So to provide a quick summary, we want a whole food, high protein diet, but the proteins that we select...
Is that chicken? Is that raw chicken? Chicken, garlic, and rosemary? Looks like it.
...should be lean, as in low saturated fat. We know from...
So what was in those images? That one we got. What's...
So to provide...
So we got peas, beans, capsicum or bell pepper, Brussels sprouts, tomato, string bean, baby corn, celery, carote. So of those things, I already eat a fair amount of tomato, beans and peas, yay. capsicum or bell pepper, yes. Carote, somewhat. I don't ever eat celery. It's like eating water. And I fucking hate Brussels sprouts. Isn't that weird? That's Brussels sprouts. It's one of those weird foods that has not left me. As a kid, that stuff made me puke my guts up. And as an adult, I still can't deal with it. It's weird. It's like as you get older, your taste buds change, but not for these guys. They're still absolutely heinous. Hate them. But yeah, I'm already on this somewhat. I could obviously do more, but
A quick summary. We want a whole food, high protein diet.
and chicken and garlic of yay and rosemary. Hell yeah. I could, if that was all you could eat, that'd be fine. That's beautiful.
But the proteins that we select should be lean, as in low saturated fat. We know from a Cochrane review that as we lower our saturated fat intake, we lower the chance of heart attacks. And a quick note that saturated fat is different to dietary cholesterol. So for most patients, dietary cholesterol that's commonly found in things like eggs doesn't have a huge impact on our blood cholesterol levels. It's the saturated...
John, my favorite vegetable is chicken broccoli from a Chinese restaurant. Tastes very good, especially with soy sauce on it. Chicken and broccoli. Okay. Now, I guess it depends how it's cooked. You probably wouldn't want that chicken deep fried at that point.
Fat that increases our blood lipoprotein concentrations. We also want to focus on high fiber foods because, again from Cochrane, we can see that as we increase our fiber intake, we lower our total and LDL cholesterol levels. And in terms of
what did he say? Our total cholesterol
intake.
As we increase our fiber, total cholesterol, so LDL and HDL, both. Okay.
We lower our total and LDL cholesterol levels. And in terms of blood pressure, we want to be consuming high potassium foods, such as beans, lentils, avocados, spinach, broccoli, and peas.
Okay, check all those.
And of course, we want to be exercising. Now, if diet and exercise aren't enough, there are a myriad of cholesterol-lowering medications that we can use. So make sure to check out this next video.
Wow, so there's the pitch. He wanted you to buy his medicines. Okay, well, that should be noted that at the very end there, he said, look, and if you can't do all that, you can take a pill, and here's where you can buy it. Okay, be careful. Well, just be aware that was, I mean, what did we learn from that video? We learned pretty much what we've already read. LDL's good, HDL bad. He was trying to drill home the point where it's not the cholesterol, it's the vehicle that it sits in this case, the LDL, so you want to have less of those. Okay. Let's move on, though. In the spirit of openness, here is a speech. Looks like an Australian channel, Low Carb Down Under. This is a Dr. Paul Mason. Now, this does run for 20 minutes, but it's the truth about high cholesterol. Let's see what he's got to say. Dr. Paulskins, where are you, my friend? Here we are. Dr. Paul. Whoa. Nice cruisy tune to start. The Heart of the Matter, Chapter 1, Busting the LDL Myth. This sounds like...
G'day.
G'day.
I'm Dr. Paul Mason.
He's obviously not in Australia when he starts his speech with g'day. We don't actually say that. I mean, we do, but we don't start a speech with it. He's probably directing it to an international audience. Here we go.
G'day. I'm Dr. Paul Mason. This
Laughter.
lecture is about the science.
I bet his speech had g'day, pause for laughter.
G'day. I'm Dr. Paul Mason. This lecture is about the science which contradicts nearly everything I learnt about LDL in medical school. You may have seen this anti-smoking ad before.
This is part of an aorta, the main artery from the heart. Smoking makes artery walls sticky and collect dangerous fatty deposits.
I remember this. That looks like minced garlic. I remember this ad as a kid.
Smoking makes artery walls sticky and collect dangerous fatty deposits. This much was found stuck to the aorta wall of a smoker, age 32.
Jesus.
Until recently, we tended to blame this disease on the fat and cholesterol within our diet. This is known as the lipid hypothesis. Simplistically, eating fat causes our LDL level to rise, which then blocks our arteries.
Did he just say statistically? Because that's what we've just learned, right? Statistically.
This is known as the lipid hypothesis. Simplistically,
He said simplistically, not statistically.
Eating fat causes our LDL level to rise, which then blocks our arteries.
Okay, at that point, eating high fatty foods increases our fat cholesterol levels to rise, blocking our arteries. That's kind of almost so well known. He's going to break that down and replace that learning. We've all known that, right? We've all known that. What's this? The Springfield Republican, 10 cents.
And unfortunately, when President Eisenhower had his heart attack in 1955, this was the reasoning wheeled out by the most vocal and influential scientists of the time. This put the lipid hypothesis on track to haunt us for generations to come. The question is, what is the evidence that high LDL will kill you?
Didn't they just squeeze out that artery and show it? Didn't they just squeeze all that crap out and say that's... But is he going to say that might not have been from it could have been a separate reason?
This systematic review answered that question. 19 prospective cohort studies with over 68,000 participants were reviewed, and the overwhelming finding was that individuals with the highest LDL levels lived the longest. In fact,
The highest LDL levels.
16 of the 19 studies found this relationship. The higher the LDL level, the lower the chance of death. And it didn't matter how you sliced it or diced it, comparing the very highest LDL group with the lowest, or just the second lowest. High LDL levels came out on top. Even when study subjects with terminal diseases, heart disease, diabetes were excluded, the results stayed the same. This study found about a 50% reduction in the chance of death in the highest LDL group compared to the lowest. In a nutshell, the findings of this systematic review are robust, and dismissing or ignoring them is scientific fraud. Let's take a look at it.
So he's for it. He's with us, right? LDL bad.
Exactly what LDL is. You may be surprised to see that it doesn't have horns. It might also surprise you to see how complex it is. In fact, the body devotes a lot of resources to producing it. It's a complex structure called a lipoprotein. It's made of fat, cholesterol, and protein. And remember the term lipoprotein. You've probably come to associate LDL with cholesterol though. Maybe even mistake one for the other. In fact, many doctors do.
Well, we now know that LDL is the vehicle the cholesterol travels around in.
They often talk about LDL and cholesterol like they're the same thing. The thing is, LDL is so much more than just cholesterol. Here you can see that LDL carries cholesterol bound to fatty acids as cargo, while also containing cholesterol penetrating its surrounding membrane. Clearly, LDL is more than just cholesterol. Still, both cholesterol and LDL particles can be found in atherosclerotic plaques. So does it have a causative role? Scientifically speaking, this is what guilt by association looks like.
Wow.
Nonsense.
There seems like there's a lot of infighting here, right? They're throwing shade at each other, back and forward. Well, they should have a boxing match. That's how YouTubers resolve their issues. Or write a diss track. Why doesn't he come out with a diss track on...
It's confusing correlation with causation. Just because two things exist together at the same time.
By the way, this is the exact same thing that the other guy just said, or the Kiwi guy said, except I just searched up these at random. These were the first two that popped up. Interesting.
Doesn't mean one caused the other. So let's now take a closer look at all the lipoproteins. The first thing to understand is that LDL is only one of 5 major classes of lipoprotein, the most obvious difference between them being by size.
Sizes.
The lipoprotein on the bottom left is called a chylomicron, and it's formed after we eat. By the time we do a fasting blood test, though, mostly this has disappeared, so we don't need to worry about that anymore.
Right. That's important. The fasting blood test is what I had, obviously.
Right, you can see HDL, which is colloquially known as good HDL. For the moment, though, I just want to focus on the 3 lipoproteins in the middle: VLDL, IDL, and LDL. This stands for very low density, intermediate density, and low-density lipoprotein. The smaller the lipoprotein, the denser it is. And you'll observe that rather than show them separately, I've linked them all with arrows. And that's because, in essence, they are all the same particle. Think of VLDL as a balloon with a slow leak. Given these lipoproteins are defined by size, as it shrinks, it arbitrarily becomes another type of lipoprotein.
Arbitrarily? Arbitrarily, right?
As it shrinks, it arbitrarily becomes...
He's just got nerves. He doesn't think that's how that word's pronounced, surely. He's a doctor. Arbitrarily? Is arbitrarily a word? Arbitrarily. Arbitrarily. Without the R. See, it wants me to put the R in. Arbitrary? So arbitrary is not a word. Yeah, he just pronounced it wrong.
Another type of lipoprotein, eventually becoming LDL. So in essence, LDL is just a shrunken form of VLDL. And VLD shrinks as it delivers its lipid cargo to various tissues around the body. Because, well, that's its job. So where does VLDL come from in the first place?
Good question.
It's made by the liver.
Oh, the liver.
It then circulates around the blood, delivering its lipid cargo, first becoming an intermediate density lipoprotein, and finally a low density lipoprotein.
Okay.
LDL is then taken back up by the liver for recycling. I'd like to take a detour for a moment and address the long-standing myth that dietary cholesterol and dietary saturated fat increase LDL levels. Examine this diagram and ask...
Whoa. He wants to break that myth. So if he's now going to tell us that if you eat the foods that we were told you shouldn't eat, it's not going to affect your LDL level. Is that what I understood?
The long-standing myth that dietary cholesterol and dietary saturated fat increase LDL levels.
Okay. So he's going to tell us that if you do eat all those foods, it does not affect your LDL levels. Okay.
Examine this diagram and ask yourself, what factors could increase LDL levels?
A well-functioning liver.
Increased production of the LDL precursor, VLDL, could be one.
Yep.
Another is by reducing the reuptake back into the liver.
Yep.
Here's the thing though. Cholesterol and saturated fat do neither. If dietary cholesterol increased LDL...
So hold on. Cholesterol and saturated fats do not create LDLs. The liver does. But if you eat all that saturated fats, does the liver work overtime to keep compensating and therefore creating more of these LDLs? But that's what he said, right?
Do neither. If dietary cholesterol...
Go back.
Uptake back into the liver. Here's the thing though. Cholesterol and saturated fat do neither.
Yeah, cholesterol and saturated fat do not create the LDL. The liver does, yeah.
If dietary cholesterol increased LDL, then one would presume that by consuming 7,000 milligrams daily of cholesterol would lead to high LDL levels.
That's true, yeah.
And in this quite fabulous study, they fed patients 35 eggs daily for a month. Their cholesterol levels remained normal.
So eggs are high in cholesterol? And so these patients ate 35 eggs a day for a month and their cholesterol levels did not increase. The hell? When was this done? 1975. Jesus, that's as old as I am, 48. Wow. So their cholesterol is interesting.
Their cholesterol levels remained normal.
But wait. What else did they eat? Eggs, meat, milk and products, beer, juice, bread, sugar, potatoes, chocolate, soups, margarine, butter. I mean, that's just my basic diet. I mean, I've been doing that study for 48 years and my cholesterol's gone up. Hey, by the way, what else has gone up right now is I had that coffee and I got to take a slash. So I'll be right back. That's not the right button. All right. Side note, taking a slash there, that's the reason I went and got all of these health checkups originally or initially. I have I have a problem where I guess it's like anybody. When you drink, you got to go and pee. So I just had a coffee, and I've had, I guess, 2 sips of water. And in the space that we've been live, how long we've been live for? 1 hour and 6 minutes. I've had to pee with urgency because of that coffee. That's aside from the point. My prostate's fine. That was the main thing, though. Anyway, let's move on. Well, let's continue on.
Their cholesterol levels remained normal. Nor does saturated fat increase LDL. Consider this randomised controlled trial which gave subjects 50 grams of either coconut oil, olive oil or butter for 4 weeks. Compare what happened in these subjects who consumed the coconut oil, which contained 94% saturated fat, to those consuming butter, containing 66% saturated fat. This is what happened in the coconut oil group. Their LDL level dropped.
What?
This saturated fat causes LDL to rise.
So saturated fats did not increase your LDL levels.
This theory isn't looking so good anymore. And despite containing far less saturated fat, the butter led to a significant increase in LDL.
Hold on. So the butter increased the LDL, but the coconut oil did not. And butter is less saturated fat than coconut oil. So therefore, what's in butter that increased the LDL level? Please tell us.
Saturated fat. The butter led to a significant increase in LDL. So let's now get back to our lipoproteins.
No. Tell us what was in the butter. How come we're not going to learn what's in the butter? That could be the key. Just cut out butter. How come he's not going to tell us that? You just jump right past that. We want to lower our LDL, and there's the butter, right? Don't. Okay, from here on, no butter.
Increase in LDL. So let's now get back to our lipoproteins, VLDL, IDL, and LDL. Now, each of these particles being essentially the same, they carry the same unique identifying protein in their membrane. It's called ApoB100.
Okay.
ApoB100 serves the essential function of acting like a swipe card that allows these particles to be recognised by receptors on the liver and cells around the body. If they can't be identified because the ApoB100 is damaged, they can't deliver their essential cholesterol cargo. Here you can see, for example, LDL is unable to enter the liver.
I just got to pause here for a second. I just had a thought. I'm watching a lot of content here that could be considered by YouTube as being medical in nature, and they don't like that on streams. So I'm just going to sign into my Gmail just to make certain that I'm not getting any YouTube notifications. I'm good. I normally, when I stream, I normally have my YouTube email address open, just because it's hit me in the past where they've been emailing me and I haven't been seeing it because I used a dummy email account to sign up for YouTube 8 years ago. So I've got it open now. It's got me in the past. That we're good. Just thought I'd do that though.
These ApoB100 damaged lipoproteins.
By the way, I missed all that Apo stuff. What's the Apo crap?
Identified.
What's Apo do? Sorry.
Acting like a
I want to read
B100. ApoB100 serves the essential function of acting like a swipe card that allows these particles to be recognised by receptors on the liver and cells around the body.
Okay.
If they can't be identified because the ApoB100 is damaged, they can't deliver their essential cholesterol cargo. Here you can see, for example, LDL is unable to enter the liver. These ApoB100 damaged lipoproteins can still reach the receptor.
Aha. So ApoB100 needs to be in your blood system so that the LDLs make their way back to the liver and not to the peripheral tissues, is what I'm understanding. Science.
They just aren't let in, and this leads to their accumulation in the circulation.
Okay. I want more ApoB100s. Where do I get those from?
Leads to what is known as an increased LDL particle count. Now, because they're small, The absolute volume of these accumulated particles is actually not that much.
Maybe that's why they couldn't see them back in the 70s. They were like, too small for our microscopes. The Apo B100, we never knew about those until we got better microscopes. Could be.
When it's compared relative to their number counts. So in essence, you end up with lots of particles, but not much volume, not much what we call LDL cholesterol level, which is what's normally measured. And this explains why particle number is actually a much better predictor of vascular disease than total LDL volume. This 2018 study, based on 15 years of follow-up of nearly 28,000 females, supports this. It found that while the volume of LDL cholesterol didn't predict heart disease at all, the particle count did. Those with a high particle count had a nearly 2.5 times increased risk of heart.
High particle count. So the amount of cholesterol in the LPD. Yeah.
Disease. So then the question is, if damage to LDL lipoproteins increases the risk of cardiovascular disease, can we tell if we have normal or damaged LDL? And the answer is yes. You see, when an LDL lipoprotein gets...
So hold on, is a damaged LPL one that has less ApoB100? That's what I understand, right? A damaged one would be one that doesn't include these APOs.
Damaged. It fractionally shrinks. The more damage, the greater the shrinkage. And the damage tends to happen in stages, which means that damaged LDL tends to have distinct populations.
And is it damaged LPL because it hasn't got back to the liver because of the lack of the ApoB100?
The importance of this in considering risk of heart disease comes from this study. More than 11,000 subjects, and you can see 4 different lines, each representing varying levels of undamaged LDL, and this is often called large buoyant LDL. And this is graphed against cardiovascular risk. And you can see that increasing levels of undamaged LDL, represented by the different coloured lines, does not increase cardiac
Very
risk.
similar.
Essentially, the 4 lines are on top of each other. Compare this then to an analysis of small dense LDL, the damaged version of LDL. You can clearly see that the elevated levels of small dense LDL are associated with a much...
Sorry, man. This has been the worst stream for interference with a phone. I should have turned this shit off. It's ridiculous. I'm going to put it in a drawer. I'm getting... my phone's just been buzzing like it's crazy.
Risk of heart disease. Even when total LDL levels are low...
Hey, so hang on. This damaged LPL, he didn't really explain that. Is the damaged LPL because it's lacking the AP100s? He didn't really say. He just started talking about damaged LPL. He didn't really explain, unless I missed it, he didn't really kind of explain exactly how that gets damaged.
The presence of small, dense LDL predicts cardiac risk. And this is far from an isolated finding. Take this 8-year study from Japan, which found those with the highest small dense LDL levels were 5 times more likely to suffer from heart disease. And we can test for the presence of small dense LDL using a centrifuge to separate LDL particles based on size and density. This is an example of a healthy LDL sample. First of all, it gets placed in a gel and then spun down so that the different lipoproteins move through the gel based on their size and density. The dark lines at the top represent different lipoprotein populations which have moved different distances. And the results are presented like this. You can see the peaks matching the dark lines in the gel. The height of the peaks represents the overall volume of each lipoprotein. You'll note in the LDL section in the middle that there is only one clear peak, evidence of a single healthy LDL population. Let's see what an unhealthy LDL sample looks like. Focus here on the LDL section within the gel, within the yellow box. Now you can see that there's 2 distinct populations, which on a graph would look like this. You can now see 2 distinct peaks of LDL, and further damage to LDL could lead to a 3rd or even a 4th peak. In this example, you can see that the damaged LDL population is significant, much more than the healthy one. And you can also see a large amount of lipoprotein in the 4th and 5th bands, those vertical columns. And the 4th band is where things really start to heat up. This 2021 study found, predictably, there was no difference in LDL levels between those with and without coronary artery disease. That was just total LDL. When they looked at LDL subfractions, though, they found the presence of LDL in band 4 or above was almost always associated with coronary heart disease. That means this twin peak LDL pattern, with LDL extending out to band 3, might well be okay. While this 3-peaker, where you can see LDL going out to band 4, almost certainly indicates a problem. And while informative, this testing is expensive. Fortunately, we can get some assessment of the likelihood of a pattern B LDL subfraction, that is, one without damaged LDL.
I really wish he had have explained how an LDL gets damaged. I really wish. It seems like that's just assumed knowledge, but not for me.
Measures from a standard blood lipid panel. The most important marker is triglycerides. An analysis of more than 5,000 patients with heart disease found a clear correlation between triglyceride levels and the presence of small dense LDL particles. The grouping on the left, that represents those patients with small dense LDL, and the cluster on the right, that sort of L-shaped cluster, that represents patients with the large buoyant LDL. And the y-axis is the level of triglycerides. And you can see that the cluster on the left, representing the small dense LDL, the damaged LDL, they had on average much higher triglyceride levels. Furthermore, you can see as you move towards the right in the graph, where the LDL was larger or more buoyant, high triglyceride levels become quite rare. In fact, a triglyceride level of less than 0.8 millimoles or 70 milligrams a decilitre is predictive of a low risk of having small dense LDL. Conversely, a triglyceride level of over 2.8 millimoles a litre or 250 milligrams a decilitre is bad news bear. And this data correlates very well with previous research. This study was from 1990, and you can see that only about 5% of subjects had small dense LDL when their triglyceride was less than 0.8 millimoles a litre or about 70 milligrams a decilitre. And I'd also like to point out that at less than 0.5 millimoles a litre or 40 micrograms a decilitre, the incidence of small dense LDL approaches 0. And we now come to HDL, where a higher level is desirable. Here it is clear that the rate of small dense LDL is increased substantially with HDL levels below about 1.3 millimoles a litre or 52 micrograms a decilitre. Even better than triglycerides or HDL in isolation when predicting for small dense LDL is the ratio between the two.
Ratio?
You can see here that a ratio of over about 0.9 in millimoles a litre units or over 2.0 in milligram a decilitre units is associated with a greater probability of small dense LDL. I therefore think that this is a reasonable algorithm to assess the probability that a lipid profile is either atherogenic or non-atherogenic.
Fuck.
That is, artery clogging.
I've really I've tried. He's lost me in this part. I'm a bit confused.
Or not artery clogging. I'm now going to muddy the waters a little bit.
Don't muddy them, clear them.
I've demonstrated that.
I'm already muddied. I was hoping he'd say, okay, now what does this all mean in dum-dum terms? He's going to make it even harder.
Higher LDL levels are on average associated with longevity. That doesn't mean that every case of LDL elevation is a good thing, however. Take this graph of LDL versus mortality. You can clearly see on the left that the greatest risk of death is with the lowest level of LDL. You can also see that risk increases, although less so, with the highest levels of LDL.
Okay.
And this is not surprising because several factors can increase VLDL production, ultimately increasing the number of LDL particles. The most obvious of these is insulin resistance. And something that may surprise you is that insulin resistance can increase on low carbohydrate diets, often in association with increased LDL and usually in the context of a high dairy consumption.
Is this the keto edge now, that this is what that first guy was arguing against? Go back. What did he say about insulin? He said
resistance. Because several factors can increase VLDL production, ultimately increasing the number of LDL particles. The most obvious of these is insulin resistance.
So a higher level of insulin resistance in your blood is going to generate more LDLs, which is good. And you get that from a keto diet. Okay.
And something that may surprise you is that insulin resistance can increase on low carbohydrate diets,
Low carb, high fat.
often in association with increased LDL and usually in the context of a high dairy consumption.
Right.
You see, dairy can contribute to insulin resistance. This study found a high dairy intake predicted insulin resistance in middle-aged females. A finding supported by this experimental study, which compared diets rich in dairy to a diet rich in red meat. While maintaining a constant weight over 4 weeks, the subjects consuming the high dairy diet were found to experience an increase in their fasting insulin levels consistent with insulin resistance, despite having a normal glucose tolerance at the start of the study. And one caveat is that while dairy can worsen insulin resistance, it's still not as bad as most of the foods on a standard Western diet. And this is why population studies can indicate that dairy is associated with improved insulin resistance, because dairy is taking the place of some pretty bad food. It's also easy to overconsume dairy. And I believe one of the reasons for this is that it naturally contains a version of morphine. For many who are struggling to give up the warm hug that you get from sugary foods provided by that dopamine rush, dairy can simply become a replacement. It becomes the go-to. And incidentally, this is one of the reasons why dairy can be constipating, the constipating effects of morphine being well known.
Wow.
There's also good evidence that B12...
That just took a big twist there. What? So is he saying don't do the keto diet?
Deficiency is causally associated with increased LDL. Here you can see a significant increase in cholesterol synthesis due to low vitamin B12. And don't for a second think that the standard B12 reference interval reliably identifies B12 deficiency. It's a reflection of population averages, and given that B12 deficiency is increasingly common, many cases go missed. Another potential cause of elevated LDL relates to inflammation, in particular a signalling protein that often circulates in the blood in inflammatory states. This is called tumour necrosis factor alpha.
That looks like a map of America, but a child drew it without looking.
This study used Syrian golden hamsters.
I got to be honest. I'm out here. At this point, there's too much. I'm out. I know this is not a YouTube video as such. It's a presentation that's been put on YouTube, but it's gone in so deep at this point that he did say he's muddying the waters. If he doesn't take that mud out in a second or in 40 seconds, he's got 40 seconds. This video goes for 40 more seconds. He's got to wrap this up, right? Tell me what I should and shouldn't eat.
Whose lipid system closely resembles that of humans, and demonstrated that tumour necrosis factor alpha caused overproduction of VLDL, the LDL precursor, up to 8 times normal, in fact. So when I observe an unexpectedly high LDL level, I'm always on the lookout for sources of inflammation. And along a similar vein, I'd just like to point out that there are numerous potential causes for elevated triglyceride levels besides sugary, carbs and alcohol. Some of the most common ones I come across include an underactive thyroid, kidney disease, diabetes, hemochromatosis, and numerous drugs including beta blockers and corticosteroids. So, as with LDL, if you see an unexpectedly elevated triglyceride level, be sure to consider more than just diet. In closing, the story we've been fed about LDL as the major cause of heart disease is clearly nonsense. When LDL becomes
It's funny calling it nonsense because it was all peer-reviewed, backed up with studies, blah blah blah, and now he just called all that he's basically called all of that research from years gone by nonsense, and he's muddied the waters with me. John, the stream has gone for 1 hour and 25 minutes. Thank you, man.
oxidised, however, it can become a problem. And the triglyceride to HDL ratio is a reliable way of predicting this. Even if LDL is not oxidised, a very elevated LDL level may be symptomatic of another issue that ought not be overlooked. Thank you.
Wow. So I don't really know what to take from that. I kind of followed along for a while, and then I got lost at the muddying of the waters part. LDLs exist, and they come. The liver creates them in that cycle of VDL, big LDLs, and then puts them back in. But then there's the B100s that stop it. I thought he was going to say, so we need the liver to be working better. I thought that's where he was headed. We need the liver to work more, to function better, to ensure that these LDLs get filtered back into the liver, not into the arteries and all that. And he said that the only way that they get stopped is because of these BPLs, BP100s, whatever it was. And that's when I thought he would then go in and say, and they come from, but he didn't. So Dr. Paul Mason, it was good, but man, I walked away from that a little bit more confused. Now, there is one last video I've got here to round out the three. I always like taking 3 videos on the subject. This is a channel called Huberman Lab Clips. The Truth About Dietary Cholesterol by Dr. Peter Attia and Dr. Andrew Huberman. Let's see what these yahoos have to say. Play skis.
Most people are operating under the assumption that eating saturated fat is bad, and you only do it insofar as you want to taste it. And then, of course, there's a small group of people that love to eat organs and meats and really pack cholesterol, and would argue that doesn't matter if your LDL is 870.
Now, just be aware, he's drinking out of a jar. I'm just saying, right? The guy's drinking out of a jar now.
It's not going to impact your health. What's the reality around LDL, HDL, dietary cholesterol, saturated fat, at least in your view?
So first, let's differentiate between cholesterol and fat, just for the listener.
It's unfortunate, but I guess it doesn't really matter. But we're now into this sort of like sphere of like, I guess the alpha male sort of content, right? So these guys are meant to be these guys are. I'm assuming they say that they're doctors, but the presentation here, drinking out of a jar, short sleeve, big buff guys, big beard. You know, it's meant to present to a particular audience. Let's just say, and I'm embracing it. I'm open to it, but it is what it is. We've just seen, a lecture. We've seen a YouTuber, and now we're seeing the alpha males explain it. And I'm assuming this guy was referring to when he talked about all meat diets. I'm assuming he's referring to people such as the Liver King, right? Who should also be noted not just, but recently got uncovered as being a massive fraudster. So just take that into consideration.
So first, let's differentiate between cholesterol and fat, just for the listener, because we use them. I don't want to make sure people understand. So cholesterol is a really complicated molecule. So it's a ringed molecule. God, I used to know exactly what its structure was.
And also, sorry to cut in on Dr. Peter or Dr. Andrew. I'm not suggesting that these guys don't have anything valid to say. They could well and truly present this and make it as clear as day. But I'm just seeing and stating what I see. Might not be what is real, but that's what I see from the outset. It's good to have a good variety though, right? We've had 3. John, I'm 24 years old, so I don't have to worry about any parts of my body wearing down or limiting my diet as I get older and older. I think you're wrong with that, John. I'll read that comment again. I'm only 24 years old, so I don't have to worry about any parts of my body wearing down or limiting my diet as I get older and older. You're incorrect there. You definitely do need to worry about that. I mean, what was that first video? The very first video we watched. The patient was in his mid-30s or early 30s. You're also getting older, John. Don't worry about that. We all are. I'll just go back in a minute here just to be clear.
I don't want to make sure people understand. So cholesterol is a really complicated molecule. So it's a ringed molecule. God, I used to know exactly what its structure was, but like it could have 36 carbons for all I remember. It is a lipid, so it is a hydrophobic molecule that is synthesized by every cell in the human body.
Cool.
It is so important that without it, if you look at sort of genetic conditions that impair cholesterol synthesis, depending on their severity, they can be fatal in utero. So in other words, anything that really interferes with our ability to produce cholesterol is a threat to us as a species.
And I understand that. And I also understand that your body produces cholesterol. So you might not need to onboard more cholesterol simply because your body creates its own cholesterol. Just saying. John, I meant in between 1 or 2 decades. That's when I start noticing that I need to take good care of my body very carefully when I'm in my 50s. I mean, I would debate that, John. I would suggest everybody needs to be taking good care of their body from the moment you start occupying it, from when you realize what you've got.
And the reason for that is cholesterol makes up the cell membrane of every cell in our body. So, as you know, but maybe the listeners don't, even though a cell is a spherical thing, it has to be fluid, right? It's not just a rigid like sphere, like a blow up ball, right? It's got to be able to kind of move in this way to mesh with other cells. It also has to accommodate having porous structures that traverse its membrane to allow ions and things like that to go across.
I like how this guy's explaining it from the grassroots up. Like the other guys didn't, but this is cool.
And it's cholesterol that gives the fluidity to that membrane.
Huh.
It's also, as you're alluding to, the backbone of some of the most important hormones in our body: estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, cortisol. So we have this thing, super important. Okay. Then let's talk about, can you get cholesterol in your diet? Yes, you can eat foods that are rich in cholesterol. What was known in 1960, but somehow escaped everybody's imagination until finally the American Heart Association acknowledged this a few years ago, is that the cholesterol you eat does not really make it into your body.
Oh, what?
And the reason for that is
that's big revelation. The cholesterol you eat doesn't make its way into your body. So what organ's responsible for clearing that one out? Is it the liver doing the task there? What? That's big.
Until finally the American Heart Association acknowledged this a few years ago, is that the cholesterol you eat does not really make it into your body. And the reason for that is it's esterified. So we have, and not to get too nerdy, but I really think it's important people understand how this thing works.
Get nerdy.
So we have cells in our gut, and enterocytes. They're the endothelial cells of our gut. Each one of them has basically 2 transporters on them. So the first is called the Niemann-Pick C1-like-1 transporter.
Jesus.
The second is called the ATP binding cassette G5, G8.
Aren't they headlining Coachella this year?
Okay. The Niemann-Pick C1-like-1 transporter will bring in...
Is it really Niemann Pixie? Pixies? Really? Niemann Pixies?
Okay. The Niemann-Pick C1-like-1 transporter will bring in...
That's as good as the ampuli of Lorenzini on a shark. That's a great name. I call my album that. What was it again?
Okay. The Niemann-Pick C1-like-1 transporter will bring...
Niemann Pixie like-1 transporter. That's a name of a band for sure. Sorry, man. This actually, I'll walk back what I said. This guy is impressing me. He's presenting it well, and it's education.
Okay. The Niemann-Pick C1-like-1 transporter...
And it's not just because it's called Pixie either. Forget that. Sorry, I'll keep butting in.
Okay. The Niemann-Pick C1 like 1 transporter will bring in any sterol, cholesterol, zoosterol, phytosterol, any sterol that fits through the door will come in. Virtually all of that is the cholesterol we produce that gets taken back to the liver, that the liver packages in bile and secretes. So that's what aids in our digestion, which is another thing I should have mentioned earlier. In addition to using cholesterol for cell membranes and hormones, we wouldn't be able to digest our food without cholesterol because it's what makes up the bile salts. So our own cholesterol is basically recirculated in a pool throughout our body, and this is the way it gets back into the body.
Through the liver.
Through this Niemann-Pick C1 like 1 transporter. When it gets in there, the body, this is the checkpoint of regulation. This is where the body says, do you have enough cholesterol in the body, yes or no? If yes, I will let that cholesterol make its way into the circulation. So it'll go off the basolateral side of the cell, not the luminal side, into the body. Alternatively, the body says, you know what? We have enough cholesterol. I'm going to let you poop this out. And now the ATP binding cassette will shoot it out. It'll go back into the luminal side and away it goes. So all of the cholesterol.
So what's the problem then? The body seems to know what to do with it. Let it do its thing.
Our body is not esterified.
Hang on.
And now the ATP binding cassette will shoot it out. It'll go back into the luminal side and away it goes. So all of the cholesterol in our body is not esterified, meaning it doesn't have that big bulky side chain attached to it. The cholesterol you eat is esterified, and an esterified cholesterol molecule simply can't physically pass through that Niemann-Pick C1 like 1 transporter. Now, we probably manage to de-esterify 10 to 15% of our dietary cholesterol. So in other words,
what did he say? We managed to de-esterify, so we can 10 to 15% of the cholesterol that we eat does make its way into our body. The rest of it, 85, gets ejected. That cassette joins it like a cassette from the old days, and it's no longer used or needed, so it gets pooped out. Is that what he just said? So 10 to 15% of it.
Now, we probably manage to de-esterify.
The word probably there, shouldn't there be studies for this to show statistics and facts? Because the word probably, I don't know.
We probably manage to de-esterify 10 to 15% of our dietary cholesterol. So in other words, there are small amounts of dietary cholesterol that do make their way into our circulation. But
doesn't that contradict what he said at the very beginning? Didn't he say none, or did he say some? I think he said some, didn't he? Some gets in. I guess the problem is if you eat only fatty foods, like high cholesterol foods, then that percentage is still 10 to 15, but it's of a bigger pool. The American diet typically is quite fatty, right?
Dietary cholesterol that do make their way into our circulation. But it represents a small fraction of our total body's pool of cholesterol. Again, this was known even by Ancel Keys, the guy who turned fat into the biggest boogeyman of all time. Ancel Keys acknowledged this in the 1960s. Dietary cholesterol plays no role in serum cholesterol. Again, it took the American Heart Association another 60 years to figure that out, but even now they acknowledge that. Dietary cholesterol has no bearing.
So why is it that it's pretty easy to find studies, or at least people who are highly credentialed from good institutions, claiming that eating saturated fat,
saturated fat's different.
Saturated fat and red meat, things that are rich in cholesterol, to be more specific, is bad for us in terms of our eventual LDL.
So this is two different things. So saturated fat consumption in many people will raise LDL cholesterol.
What? Isn't that what we're talking about? Eating cholesterol, eating foods that are high in cholesterol, aka saturated fats. What am I missing here? Did he just backtrack what he said? John, I have learned that too much smoking can cause lung cancer. Does that also increase the risk of heart? Yes. One of the factors was smoking. So quitting smoking will help reduce your LDL levels. I got to back this up.
In terms of our eventual LDL.
So this is two different things. So saturated fat consumption in many people will raise LDL cholesterol. So it's important to differentiate between what is saturated fat. So saturated fat, of course, is a fatty acid, just so people understand, totally different molecule from cholesterol. Cholesterol is this very complicated ring structure, multiple rings stuck together.
Okay, so what we're hearing now is saturated fats are not cholesterol. Two different things. Foods that are high in cholesterol aren't necessarily high in saturated fats, is I guess what we're going to hear.
SFA, saturated fat, is just a long chain fatty acid that is fully saturated, meaning it has no double bonds, and it can exist in isolation. It can exist in a triglyceride, triacylglyceride, or a phospholipid, or all sorts of things like that. So when we eat foods that contain fat, basically there are three distinctions for that fat. Is it saturated? Is it monounsaturated, one double bond, or is it polyunsaturated, two or more double bonds? The observation that eating saturated fat raises cholesterol is generally correct.
Right. Okay, that ended abruptly, but yeah. Okay. Well, okay. So what did we learn from this? What did I learn? Well, I already knew that my cholesterol levels are slightly high. Given historical data, it's going up. It sounds like from the first video, the the cholesterol level in my system isn't the problem. The problem is the LDLs. No one explained how to reduce LDLs, but from the next video, we understand that the liver transforms or processes these LDLs into the various other DLs, the big ones, the small ones, and then spits them back out through the system. Or if there's a blockage of a damaged LDL, it spits it back into your tissue, your arteries, and that's where the problem lies. And then from this third video, I understood that the fatty foods that we consume aren't necessarily linked to that cholesterol, the cholesterol being formed in the LDLs in our body. That's a separate cholesterol, and our body just ejects it. 10 to 15% makes its way through. So with that in mind, is it safe to say overall, like from an overall answer, or if you wanted to take one thing away from my stream today, and this is what I'm going to take away from it, if you've been told that your cholesterol is slowly increasing, regardless of whether it's the cholesterol that's increasing or it's the vehicle that the cholesterol travels in, the LDL, that cholesterol is increasing, and therefore I should do something to mitigate that, to reduce it. I think that's safe to assume. I didn't see anybody in these three different videos or in the stuff that we read. I didn't see it say cholesterol good. I saw ultimately cholesterol bad, but the way that we measure it a bit arbitrary. Is it the cholesterol? Is it the LDL? How does it get in our body? Do we eat it, or does our body manufacture it? Old mate at the end here, 10 to 15% we eat, the rest of our body manufactures. So I think my takeaway will be, as a 48-year-old male who's been told by the doctor to decrease, I will do what I can to eat more of those foods that we talked about earlier that help. No. It's funny, isn't it? Because you don't eat the foods to reduce the cholesterol. You just consume less of the foods. But hold on, this guy said that those foods... Fuck! Now I'm more confused, because this guy just said... Old mate at the end here just said it's only 10 to 15% of what we consume that goes in to create our bodily cholesterol, or our bodily LDLs. So then... is it so important to eat less of those foods? I mean, if my doctor had come to me and said, this is off the charts, your LDL levels are massive, right? They're skyrocketing. You've got to reduce something, do something. That might be more dire, but the way he explained it was, it's not really a huge issue. Looking at the chart, it's over the course of your history, it's gone up a little. Drop it down. So the way, if I'm grasping this in my thick head, the way I could do that would be, if it's only 10 to 15% coming in through saturated foods, yes, you could eat less of those, and therefore that 10 to 15% of the whole would be less. Still 10 to 15, but less of less becomes less of everything. So then the only thing that I didn't quite get from this, and I really wish I did, is the BP 100s or whatever that was that stopped the LDLs from going back into the liver. I'd like to know what you can do to generate more of those guys. I don't want any of my bodily cholesterol to be pushed out into the arteries and the veins. I want it all to go back to the liver for processing. And it seemed to me the takeaway was the BP 100s or whatever that was called. Is that what that guy was talking about? The Pixie as well? And the cassette was the one that ejected it out, and the BP, the Pixie one was the one that put it back into the kidney, into the liver. A lot to dissect. Look. What are the changes I'm going to make? I'm going to try to eat more nuts. I'm going to try to eat more kidney beans. I'm going to try to eat more of those foods. I'm going to try to eat less of the other foods. Is it a major concern for me? No. If I go to my doctor in a year and get another blood test and he says, man, those tests have now gone up even higher, and maybe then it's a case of, okay, well then let's make drastic or more drastic changes. I feel like I'm pretty good as it is, but I can certainly step it up a notch, I guess, and then do a test. I would like to have a watch that can tell me the LPD levels, but looks like that tech's a while away. Hey, John, thank you for being here on the stream with me. You're the only one in my chat today, so appreciate you. Thank you. And you said you already liked the stream, so I appreciate that. John, I assume drinking liquor causes high cholesterol. It didn't mention that anywhere. It did not mention liquor. It did not mention any of that. So I'd be reluctant to assume anything. That's exactly why water is the only beverage I drink my whole life. I wouldn't want to drink coffee because sometimes it burns my mouth. Well, coffee can be, if it's too hot, sure. Water's good. Water's good. I've got some good water right here. On a side note, I've got to pee so hard already. And I told you in this stream, we were here for 1 hour 48. I drank a coffee and that much water off the top, and I got to pee hard again. I've got to share this stream to my mum since she works as a nurse practitioner. Yeah, please do. In Westchester, Pennsylvania. She knows a lot about it. Yeah, I mean, look. And by the way, at that point, if anybody's watching this VOD or this replay and we got it all wrong, please drop me a comment in the comments. Like, let me know why it's wrong. And also point to a video or a health study or something that proves it. Don't just say, nah, dude, this is bad. That's wrong. I want the statistics. I want the proof. Dr. Peter Attia and Dr. Andrew Huberman didn't really show any proof of what they were saying. They just spoke. So if you're going to speak about something, back it up. I'm not saying that they don't, but in that, I guess that was a clips channel, but they didn't really back it up. John, and so if you hit me in the comments, make sure you back that shit up. John, my takeaway is that I will continue to eat more healthy and drink thousands of water and that I avoid. Okay, that's what I'm going to do as well. John, there's still 4 people watching, but I've only been the only one that's using the live chat. Yeah, you're the only one in the chat, dude. I appreciate you commenting. Appreciate you commenting away and being there with me. We've gone for 1 hour 50. That's perfect. I'm out of here at this particular point. Don't forget, if you haven't already, like the stream up. Please show me the support there. That'd be very handy. And I'll see you all on the next live stream skis, whenever that is, whatever day that is. I don't know. Oh, gotta go for a slash.